1/3 of the way there. They got us to Thursday. We'll recap Sabres and Red Wings coming up here on Locked On Sabres.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks for making Locked On Sabres your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Sneaky Joe DiBiase coming to you after a 7-3 romping of the fraudy Detroit Red Wings that we have been saying all year long are not as good as their record, are not a legitimate playoff team. I've said aren't much better than the Sabres even when they were 10 games better in the standings, 12 points better in the standings. The Sabres send Detroit to a 6th consecutive loss. They are fighting each other at practice. The Red Wings are this morning, and it is all crumbling down in Detroit. They're not the only game in town, though, because the Sabres have other teams to worry about. We'll get to that later on in today's show. Be sure to check out our text line. If you're not already a texter of our Locked On Sabres text line, you can sign up. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSabres. You sign up there, and then everything's from your phone. You only have to do it on your browser once. Once you sign up, it's like a group chat. Text messages coming to your phone from there on out. Some of the texts that I saw from our group chat last night during the game, we were comparing Bowen Byram, who scored 2 more goals, became the first Sabre defenseman in franchise history to have 3 goals in his first 3 games as a member of the Buffalo Sabres. We were trying to compare Byram to guys that we have watched before, either in the league or with the Sabres. And a lot of us, I think, landed on Brian Campbell as a very good comp. Not perfect, but I liked it. And he really reminds me of Campbell in terms of the build of the players. 6'1", pretty solid, but not a big guy, just an average size defenseman. Can throw the body around a little bit. And more so, it's about the skating. It's about the speed. It's about the puck movement, the goal scoring ability. And maybe Byram is more of a shooter than Campbell was. So again, I know it's not perfect. 2 more goals, both rebounds that Byram had. One that kicked out to him at the point and another that he went to the net on. He has been unbelievable. We'll talk more about him coming up on today's show. Checking out, though, some of the numbers from this game in a 7-3 win. 39 shots for the Sabres, 24 for the Red Wings, and most of that damage was really done in the first period. The Sabres ran away with it early. I mean, they blitzkrieged the Red Wings right out of the gates. Detroit did not look ready to play, and that could have been predicted. The Red Wings were coming off a West Coast trip. They had just got back from Vegas, and it looked that way at the beginning of the game. 1 minute in, Ben Chariot, going back for the puck in his own end, just gets toasted by Alex Tuch, who came out of nowhere, flew past him, got the breakaway, went forehand, backhand past Alex Lyon to make it 1-0 only 1 minute in. It took 9 minutes for the Sabres to get their next goal, but they could have had 4 in between. They had so many chances. Pucks were hitting the post. They were getting robbed. They were missing on certain plays. They scored a goal, right? Tyson Jost puts one in the back of the net that got called back on an offside review. So they actually did score another goal in that in between. It just got called back. Then Bo Byram gets that rebound opportunity that I mentioned that goes way out to the point. He was awesome in this game. Zach Benson got the first of 3 points that he had in the first period on that goal. Benson was on a line with Dylan Cousins and Jordan Greenway, playing a little bit higher in the lineup, and he put up the numbers. And you know what? He is someone that has been a rookie 18-year-old, and it's very hard to expect more than what you've gotten from a 13th overall pick making his team out of training camp. But it is nice to see the numbers, right? Like, again, I'm not going to criticize him for not having the numbers this year at his age, because he's also been a very good two-way player in his first season. He's penalty killed. He's been a decent possession player. He angles his body well, wins more board battles than he probably should for how much strength he's giving up to opponents. But Benson only had 6 goals on the season and 18 points. And that's something you are going to want to see increase more and more. And to see a 3-point night for him, he gets a one-time goal on a nice pass from Jordan Greenway that made the game. That was the 3-1 goal after Ben Chariot scored. Good for Benson to get on the score sheet. He has earned those numbers, I think, to start. He's earned the right to start putting some numbers up. And then his best play of the period was the Sabres' 4th goal. Benson takes the puck from Dylan Cousins at center. And I think some players that are more, pucks on net and simple plays just rip that wrist shot from the slot because it's a nice scoring area. But Benson is a hockey IQ guy. He understands spacing. He understands angles. He knows that there are times when you got to be quick to this because the game moves fast. So you have to make these types of instinctual decisions very fast. But there are times when you're going to pass on a good chance because out of the corner of your eye, here comes a great chance. And out of the corner of Zach Benson's eye on that 4-1 goal comes Jeff Skinner off the bench, flying down the left side for a wide open scoring chance. Benson puts it right in the wheelhouse so that Skinner can accept the pass and rip it while going full speed. That's exactly what happened. Skinner puts it past him, immediately pointed to Benson because it was a great pass. Benson's 14th assist of the season, Skinner's 21st goal of the year, which at the time led the team, but Peterka got one a little bit later on. The first period, right out of the gates, they took that game over from the start. And when you look at scoring chances in period 1, at 5-on-5, 10-4 in favor of the Sabres. The Sabres also earned some power play time and scoring chances total 14 for the Sabres in period 1, 4 for the Detroit Red Wings. They were so far and away the better team in those goat head jerseys, and it just looked like a team that knew the game could get them back in it a little bit. And we could debate what their place in the standings is and how likely it is that they'll get in. It's still very much a long shot. But the point I've been trying to make leading up to that game last night is if you have a good week, we can at least talk about it. They are at least in the conversation. They are in the race. We can scoreboard watch. We can care about these hockey games, even if it's not likely they'll get in. Get us to a point where we can actually enjoy the last month of the season even a little bit. And for that, they had to have a near perfect week. And the first game of that week, they had a perfect night. A perfect night, destroying the Red Wings by, the game could have been even, again, as I mentioned, it was 7-3, but those chances they had early in the first, it could have been 10-3. Connor Clifton, one-time goal from the wall. That's one where it's a good nice goal by Clifton, a nice shot, but you want to save there if you're James Reimer. Of course, Lyon got pulled midway through the first period. The Red Wings goaltending really let the Sabres have a couple in this one. Not to say the Sabres didn't earn that victory. They did, but it helped that the Red Wings goaltenders were pretty bad. But that, again, is something that we know about them. We know Alex Lyon is regressing and that he was never going to maintain what he was doing middle of the season. We know James Reimer is way past his prime. And we know that Ville Husso is out with an injury. So the goaltending being bad in Detroit is not a surprise in the slightest. That Clifton goal, you want to save in the NHL on that one. Byram, as I talked about earlier, a good rebound in front of the net to capitalize on a Tage Thompson rebound. And then Peterka's goal, I had an interesting conversation about Peterka with Bulldog. Bulldog was at the game. We were in the GR suite for this game. And we're talking about Peterka. It was probably right after he scored. He scored his 21st goal of the year, unassisted. He took the puck at center, forced a turnover. He chipped it past the defenseman, and he roared in with speed. ripped it top corner over the left shoulder of James Reimer. And he came back into a tie with Jeff Skinner for the team lead. And we're talking about Peterka. I'll say this. The way I've thought about Peterka, and I've made this comparison sometimes, he reminds me of my guy, Max Afinogenov, a little bit, where you're getting unbelievable speed. He is a very quick stick handler. He's not the greatest two-way player. He's kind of a wild winger where you don't really, like, every time he gets the puck, you almost want to stand up. He'll be that guy. If the Sabres ever get legitimately great, Peterka, to me, has always been like, oh, remember when Afinogenov would get the puck in neutral zone and he'd be going a million miles an hour and the whole arena would stand up? Isn't that a whole different reality, by the way? Nowadays, the arena is basically, we're all sitting, watching the game, no big chants going on, not a lot of noise until they score or until something controversial happens, and then they get into it. There was a time when Max Afinogenov, 15 years ago, would get the puck at his own blue line, and the whole arena would stand up because you had no idea what was coming next. Listen, sometimes it was going to be horrible. A stupid turnover at the blue line that was going back the other way, a stupid pass that you were screaming out about, and then sometimes he'd do something that made him look like Wayne Gretzky. Like, you couldn't believe, like, what he had just pulled off. So, for that Peterka, I've always wondered if that's him. Like, that's going to be him. They're ever get great, and he'll be the guy that everyone stands up for when he gets the puck at his own blue line, because he's electric. And then I'm talking that, but what's Max Afinogenov? Even I'll recognize it. He was not an elite player by any means. He was a good middle six, top six winger that could, in a good year, score 25 plus goals and could get you to 70 points. But most years is going to be a little south of that. I'm talking to Bulldog about Peterka, and he and his son are huge Peterka guys. Like, this guy's special, and the name Kucherov got dropped. And I'm like back in my chair, like, what? Kucherov? But I'm gonna hesitate to go too far with this, and I think, that's not them predicting he's going to be Kucherov anyway. But the name was dropped. Let's just say that. Kucherov, by the way, if you're looking back at his career, he was not Kucherov at the beginning. I mean, that first season at 20 years old, 18 points in 52 games. The second year, he got to be a 60-point player, then another season at 60 points, then 80, then 100. Like, he didn't really pop off to be an elite player until his fifth season in the NHL, if you look back at Kucherov's career. Again, not predicting Peterka will become that, but tell me what Peterka doesn't have to his offensive game. He's got elite speed. He's got pretty insane stick handling, and he's got a crazy good shot. He's kind of got it all. The only thing I might want to wonder about is, does he have all that stuff I talked about Benson earlier, about understanding the game, angles, spacing, where your teammates are at all times, that hockey IQ. That's something that I wonder about with Peterka, I guess, that could hold him back from having that elite ceiling. But I had never thought about having a ceiling near that high. And maybe we should start thinking about that, wondering about what he could really become. Because he's been arguably the Sabres' most consistent forward all season. And, credit to him. He gets a 21st goal of the season, even after the game was over. Other stuff to get to about this game. A little bit more on Bo Byram. And also a Luukkonen collision that I wanted to see more from the Sabres players on the ice to get to when we come back. That's coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We are presented by Sleeper. It is nearing the end of the season, and it's looking a little bit better in the standings for Buffalo. Still not great. Want to remind you that while they're not winning in the standings quite yet, you can win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you got to do Go to the app, pick whether studs like across the league, McDavid, Ovechkin, Crosby, McKinnon, Kaprizov, could be anybody, will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in a given game. And to win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8-player stats. And you can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention, nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. When you're done with us as your first listen, be sure to make your next listen Locked On Sports Today, an MLB season preview. It's the first ever Locked On Sports Today, national sports 24/7 streaming channel. And baseball fans, mark your calendars, March 20th, 1 week from tonight at 7 p.m. for the best MLB season preview coming exclusively to Locked On Sports Today. Sabres win over the Red Wings, 7-3. Bo Byram was unbelievable again. Every shift, I notice him. Now we're looking for him, right? He's new. And you see number 4 on the ice, your eyes might be attracted to that a little bit more than some random player because he's new. We're trying to figure out what he is, how good he is, what kind of player he is. But there are little good plays on every shift. There are big good plays on every shift that you notice. He and Dahlin already have this mind meld where, this is important because they are both aggressive, skilled defensemen. And sometimes when you get 2 offensive defensemen, in a generic way of talking about this, you want to make sure someone is always back, right? Anyone a Chell fan out there? When I play EASHL in Chell, and when you have 2 guys on the back end, like me and then my buddy, who love to jump up in the play, you don't want to get caught, both of you up in the play, which in the video game, of course, can happen more than in real life. And you've got breakaways going back against you. You got 2-on-1s going back against you, and it's just a disaster. Byram and Dahlin, I think through 3 games, are doing very well at understanding when the other is jumping up, when the other is trying to make a play, and the other is smart about it, being a little bit more conservative, understanding where his partner is. And that's good to hear because I would love to see Bo Byram displace Matthias Samuelsson on that top pair for the future. Not that I dislike Samuelsson. He's fine. He's good. And he carries himself as a certain style of defenseman. Just stay at home, lock solid. But I don't think you'd like to have Samuelsson playing the amount of minutes that Byram is currently playing. Byram is playing 24 minutes a night this season. And Samuelsson, although, again, last year I really liked him. This year it was a little bit more of a down year. Last year playing 22 minutes a night for Samuelsson, I think you'd like to have him around the 19, 20-minute mark. And it would be nice to free him up to go down and play with Owen Power on the second pair. Power might need a guy like that more than Dahlin does. So hopefully Byram continues to grow into Dahlin's partner, and you could have one of the most talented defense pairings in hockey if Byram reaches his ceiling and Dahlin does. And Byram in this game, you're seeing him jump down into play, but the thing that I'd want, if I were Granato and doing film review with Owen Power, I talked about the goal he scored the other day. I'd want Power to watch Byram and watch how direct he is. Watch how decisive he is. And you could even just look at the goals for this, let alone other plays. What are those goals he scored? Those are pucks on my stick, pucks off my stick. I am putting this right in the net. Rebound, not wasting time. And those are plays where you could have gathered the puck and saw if there was a perfect pass to make. But on and off. Byram, I got his chance. I'm taking it. I'm ripping it right on. I think Byram is a good type of player for Power to learn from. And of course, I've talked about this earlier. Byram kind of, takes Power down a peg in the defense rotation, which might help alleviate some pressure from him as well. So It couldn't be going better. Byram, as I talked about earlier, or our stat of the day, if you will, the first Sabre defenseman ever to score 3 goals in his first 3 games. The other thing I want to talk about from last night's game, before we get to the standings and the out-of-town scoreboard. In the third period, it is 6-2, and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen makes a save and then proceeds to be hit by number 48 of the Detroit Red Wings, Jonathan Berggren. He hits Luukkonen in the head. And sure, was it a little bit accidental? Probably. But doesn't matter. There is a player making contact with your goaltender after the play, and nothing is done about it. Luukkonen is laying on the ground holding his head, and no one does anything about it. And I'm not Mr. Start a line brawl here, although I do like my line brawls. Didn't need them to do that. Something. Anything that would have been a reaction in that situation would have been much appreciated by everybody that was watching that game. And if you watch the replay back from the back angle, you see that pretty much every Sabre on the ice sees this happen. And it might be a little unfair to him, but the guy I'm going to pick out for this is my guy, Peyton Krebs. Very disappointed, personally, in Peyton Krebs' reaction to that play. It is 6-2. What are you going to lose? Are you afraid you're going to take a penalty to be a 5-on-4 or 5-on-3? You're up 4 with 10 minutes to play or whatever. Krebs is someone who has never shied away from a challenge, who, despite his smaller stature, has never played afraid or been afraid in situations like that. He gets in fights a lot for someone of his size, even though I know what's a lot. It's been 3, 4, whatever. Krebs gets into stuff like that. And he skates towards Berggren, and he kind of looks over at the ref, like, are you calling a penalty? And when he sees that the answer is yes, he's content with that. And they skate away. Dude, it's 6-2. Who gives a crap if you get a power play? If it was 2-1, I might understand it. But 6-2 doesn't matter. Do something about it. And the other thing is, Krebs I know is smaller. Berggren's not a big player. Berggren is 5'11", 197. Come on, go do something. You don't have to fight him. Shove him into the boards. Do anything to warrant a reaction to your star goaltender, who is the only reason that they are within 5 points this season. He is laying on the ice after getting hit in the head, and there was nothing done about it. That is something that I did not like seeing, and if it was a perfect game for, 59 minutes and 59 seconds, that 1 second of gameplay was the one that I was not happy about seeing, and I think a lot of fans would probably agree with me on that front. Again, maybe a little unfair to pick Krebs out there because he's someone that has stood up for guys in the past, but I need him to do it in that situation. He's the first guy there. He is someone that will challenge people, and he saw it. There's no reason to me that he didn't do it. And there's no good reason, I should say, that he didn't do it. All right, when we come back, the out-of-town scoreboard, the Oots, and we'll look at the standings as well. Coming back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, we are presented by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle, level it up to peak performance, superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Today's episode of Locked On Sabres is also presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on everything on the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's number one sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines, You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. Final segment here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, the Utes, the out-of-town scoreboard, the standings. What are we looking at after the Sabres beat the Red Wings 7-3? They get within 5 of both the Red Wings and the Islanders. Now, it is worth pointing out every time just to make sure, 5 points out, but the Sabres have played 1 more game than the Islanders, 2 more games than, I have that backwards. 1 more game than the Red Wings, 2 more games than the Islanders, 3 more games than the Capitals. The Capitals are 2 points above the Sabres. Washington, though, let's get to our out-of-town scoreboard a little bit, will be the only Eastern Conference team in action on Wednesday night. They are at Edmonton. 10 o'clock puck drop. Go Oilers. Stuart Skinner. The Oilers are playing their starting goaltender. They're a big favorite. You got to root for him here. You got an old Capitals team out west at Edmonton. Hopefully that goes well. I would predict that it does go well for the Sabres. And hopefully we wake up tomorrow and Washington is still only 2 points above the Sabres. And the games in hand will be 2, of course, instead of 3. So the standings. 5 points back. They can get within 3 with a win over the Islanders on Thursday in regulation. There's another game that will be happening on Thursday night. Detroit at Arizona. Now, the Coyotes are fresh off the longest losing streak the league has seen all year. They won a game to break it, a couple games to break it, and they're right back to losing again. They've lost back-to-back games. So, going to be hoping for a miracle a little bit. The bad news on the Red Wings. Despite the fact they've lost 6 games in a row, and they are imploding. They are fighting each other at practice. Ben Chariot and Lucas Raymond, I believe, got in a fight with each other at practice, had to be separated by teammates. The next 4 games for Detroit are fairly easy. Arizona tonight or tomorrow night at 7. Pretty easy game at home, too. Then the Sabres. You need the head-to-head there. Then they got the Penguins, and Pittsburgh, after losing last night in overtime to Ottawa, is starting to fall apart. And then Columbus at home on Tuesday. Those are the next 4 games for Detroit. Arizona, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Columbus. That's a pretty easy stretch. Sabres are going to need some help from some bad teams in the next few days if they want to make up any more ground on Detroit other than what they can do themselves on Saturday night. So Thursday night, you're going to be rooting for the Coyotes and, of course, the Sabres to do their business against the Islanders. And tonight, you're going to be rooting for the Edmonton Oilers. That's a 10 o'clock puck drop, so completely understandable if you're not staying up for that game, of course. I know I will not be as someone that gets up super early, but I will definitely be the first thing I look at. The first thing I look at Thursday morning will be, did the Oilers beat the Capitals last night? But we are now tracking it. We're doing it. We're watching these games. After leaving the arena last night, I'm leaving the arena. I left about 5 minutes before the game was over. It was well out of hand, right? It was 7-3 at that point. So I'm leaving the arena, and the weather's nice out. I parked a little bit of ways away where you can park for free because I don't mind taking the walk when it's like 50 degrees out. So I'm walking, and I pull up the ESPN scoreboard and just to check the Penguins and Ottawa score. So I see it's 1-0 with a minute left. Ottawa's up. And Pittsburgh, who I should have mentioned in our standings update, they are 2 back of the Sabres, and they had 3 games in hand at that second because the Sabres were about to win and the Penguins game wasn't over yet. So I'm like, all right, I got the ESPN Plus app. I'm gonna throw it on real quick while I'm walking. Stay on the sidewalks. Be as safe as you can. I'm gonna put the game up so I can watch it on my way to the car. The second I turn on the game, there's Michael Bunting of the Penguins tying the game with 30 seconds left. And I almost want to turn it off. Did I jinx them immediately? So I kept that game on. I watched that game to my car and got to see the whole overtime. Ottawa wins it in OT. An insane overtime, by the way. Back and forth, 2-on-1s, breakaways. It was one of those naughty 3-on-3s where there's a ton of stuff happening. So Ottawa gets the win. But, again, it's a little bit of progress on the season. It's a sign that they're getting back into it that I even thought to put on walking out of a Sabre game Senators, Penguins. Maybe I'm nuts, but maybe some of you did that as well. I don't know. I'll definitely be watching these games as long as they're within like 5 points of this thing. If they can hang around there, not fall too far behind, they can stay around the 5 point mark, then they're going to get towards the end of the season, and that'll keep me interested, I know, at least personally. So that's what you're looking for in the next couple of days, though, in terms of the out-of-town scoreboard and what the Sabres will need to have happen. That's going to do it for us today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Again, be sure to check out our text line. Join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres. One texter asked about Jack Quinn. Talk about Quinn on tomorrow's show. Because you might have forgotten that Quinn's timeline for injury was not the rest of the season. We'll see. I want to ask around, see what we get to hear about Quinn. Maybe there's no update. Maybe that's not going to happen, but there's a little bit of a mystery there about when he's going to come back. We'll see. Talk about that a little bit tomorrow. We'll talk about Sabres and Islanders, of course, as well. A game that they have to have against the type of opponent, a defensive slugfest team that they often don't play well against. Talk about it next time here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. After you're done with us here, be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. It's available on YouTube and on the free Fire TV channels app, Amazon Fire TV. Check out Locked On Sports Today. We'll talk to you tomorrow here on Locked On Sabres.